Hello, hello, hello. We are back. Thank you for joining us, Martie. Welcome,
Thank
my
you for having me.
collaborator.
How are you?
I am well. I am well. We were just talking behind the scenes about so many things, and I wish we had recorded it, but I just wanted to thank you so much for being a partner in this story of resilience. And I was talking behind the scenes about working in collaboration and synergy
Mhm.
together, like-mindedness, women not competing, but collaborating and making impact into the world because ultimately that's what we're trying to do.
That's it. And I think God made us all unique, yes, but we each have our own, like I say, special recipe. If we discover our passion and our purpose, we do have our special recipe with our ingredients that have made us, jump ahead of all the things that try to hold us back and everything. So I think when we get together and you compare stories or listen to each other, then you start in the innovation comes in and you start seeing, wow, I
Wow.
never looked at it that way, or I never
Sure.
saw it this way, or look at her, she went through this, and
That's right.
me, I'm complaining, and you start putting everything in perspective. So we all have to learn resilience. That that
Mm.
that should be like the first thing you do when you're born is teach your child how to be resilient, and
Right.
however, just with mannerisms or whatever, because we do have to learn that life is hard. We all know life is hard, and we're not gonna make it a piece of cake and rainbows and flowers and a beautiful cakewalk, because we all have to suffer. Okay. Now,
Mm.
the difference between the people that suffer gracefully is because they have that key ingredient of resilience. They've learned how to overcome, they've learned how to bounce back, they've learned how to be flexible, adapt, you just really find solutions instead of focusing on the problem. That's, I think that is key for me, because I used to do nothing but grill myself with the problems and find every excuse, and I was an expert at giving you all the reasons why this was not good.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I could not name one thing because I was so blinded by all the limiting beliefs. So
Yeah.
resilience is key for everyone to function, especially in today's world.
Well, you mentioned the word learned. So is it a learned skill, resilience?
I think you learn I think as things happen, as adversity occurs, but it's in you. You just have to dig out the tools that God gave you to
Mm.
start applying them. Because I think that's what happened to me. It's like I was going through all these things and I didn't know how I got through it, but I just thought maybe I got lucky, because that's how you rationalize when you don't have an explanation. But now, in looking back and doing my book and everything and really doing introspection, I said, okay, no, I just didn't see the opportunities. I didn't see all the solutions that were there because I was so blinded by the pain, the agony, the suffering, that I
Right.
was victimizing myself to the point where I couldn't see any possible solution or any result of it being a good thing happening to me.
Right. And
So
so something happened that you switched, you changed.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think one thing in particular that I remember, as far as at one point in time, I thought it was the biggest failure of my life. It was like all my life, I wanted to go to school and go to the university, went to the medical university. I was like, oh, yeah, yeah, my dream came true. I am going to graduate from a medical university as a radiation therapist. I thought I was all that. That was the bomb for me, because I had gone through so many different things that I never stuck with a thing. And becoming a radiation therapist taught me how to live because of treating cancer patients and all this. But at the same time, I graduated, and a year later, I couldn't do the career anymore. And I was like, I'm a failure. I couldn't, I, c- this is the worst setback I could have possibly imagined of something happening that I had wanted so badly
Oh.
that I called it a failure, that I didn't continue. But now, in looking back, it was never a failure. It was just like a U-turn that God was making me take a look back around and say, okay, you graduated from the medical university. You had that radiation therapy treatment knowledge so that you could take care of your mom, so that you could help with your family. So then I said it was a blessing. So the failure, that thing that I had told myself, didn't become a failure anymore. It was more like a learned experience. So this is where I say, when you refocus on the ability to see it as a lesson or an opportunity, then it doesn't become a curse or something ruined that you just don't want to look at anymore. Because that's one thing I said. It's like, oh, universities, a dime a dozen. You can get a degree that doesn't mean anything. I was downing education
Sure.
myself, but
Yeah.
it was the wrong approach, because I wanted to victimize myself. But no, it taught me huge amounts of information as to how to bounce back and look at it in a better way and say, hey, you be grateful you had it. Be grateful you graduated from there.
Yeah.
It
But
made a
you mentioned bounce back. It you know, it is not as easy as you're saying it. I know that
no,
you clearly have a path that you were on, and you mentioned that you were, once quote playing the victim, probably self-pity, probably a lot of blaming, a lot
everything.
of cognitive distortions. You're talking really toxic thinking.
Yes, yes.
But there is a transition from that to that, but sometimes it takes a lot of stuff in between to
Oh,
get to that place.
absolutely. It took me, if I really add up years, it took me 60
Yes.
years to figure out that I had resilience.
Oh, okay.
This is why I say you should be taught when you were a little kid to do it. Because if I had been taught,
Mm,
perhaps I wouldn't have faced adversity in the way I did, and perhaps I wouldn't have learned as valuable lesson as I have. But at the same time, it's something that you makes you adjust quicker than dwelling
right,
on that
right.
failure, on that setback, on that mistake, on that disaster that appears, and you don't know what to do with it. And the reason we
Right.
know what to do is because we look
Because
at
you
it
haven't
wrong.
learned it. You haven't
Right.
learned it. So when we see people, quote, giving up or not bouncing back, it's it's not that they don't want to, it's because they don't know how. Would you say that?
Absolutely. And I say that is what exactly what happened to me. Is like I was clueless. It's like something would show up. I ended up in with all these surgeries in a wheelchair. My muscles atrophied. I don't what am I going to do?
Mhm.
I don't have control over this. I mean, to a certain degree you do rationalize, but then you go overboard, because then you start saying you don't even see the good in any of that
Sure.
happening.
Right. Right.
So the more perspective you change as adversity happens, the
Mhm.
more you're able to be a little more flexible, quicker bounce back. I say it's like you're going down the road, all of a sudden you hit a speed bump and you didn't know it was there.
Mhm.
Okay. You're not going to be able to change that you hit the speed bump. You can't change adversity. Okay.
Mhm.
The difference is, how do you steer that vehicle once you hit it?
Mhm.
Okay. Are you just going to throw up your hands in the air and give up? Or are you
Right.
going to put the car back on the road? And so
Okay.
that's, to me, that's kind of like the analogy that I've discovered, that it is like bouncing back off of a speed bump. That's why in my book I say how to overcome speed bumps.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned the book. Could you read a paragraph from that book? Because the book is called Resilience. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing the show, because didn't even know what that word meant for a long time, and I didn't even know I had it. um, I didn't even know I had it until I started to experience a lot of trials.
Yeah.
And one person said to me, "Wow, you don't stay down." And I was like, "What does that mean?" You keep getting back up. I didn't even know that was resilience. So
Right.
read something from the book so we could really get into the meat of the book.
Okay, let's see. Okay. I'll read the dedication. As the inspiration for writing this book came from a massive and incredible transformation I had in my life. I dedicate this book to each and every one of you that has ever felt hopeless, helpless, or stuck and wanted to give up. The tips I share were God given tools to rebuild the version I am becoming. I hope you gain the ability to cultivate those life changing seeds of hope in you, and that we leave the world a little better than it was, with a brighter future for humanity. That's putting it all in a nutshell for me
Amazing.
because what happened to me was huge and I could easily just not tell the world.
Right.
Be happy and dealing, okay, ooh, I know a secret. But when I was starting to share my transformation, I started getting like rewarded, that rewarded feeling of paying it forward.
Mhm.
Then I started seeing people respond and be inspired by something that I thought was like, wow, how could even people take a look and say, if she could do it, I could do it? Because I never thought that highly of me being that kind of person. But it's transformed me emotionally, physically, and mentally because now I see and you do empathize. And that's another thing is when you discover resilience, you empathize because you kind of like you already facing someone going through some kind of adversity and you already know and you put yourself maybe not in their shoes, but in that situation and say, okay, I have to understand that they're going through something hard.
Mhm.
I don't know how to tell them how to go through it. All I can do is share my story and
That's
let
it.
them see if they can find an ounce of hope in it. So
Mhm.
it's very rewarding and I feel like God gave me that as a pay it forward tool as well as
Mhm. I
building a
love that paid forward. I just that, I see you and others as a bridge. I mean, I feel like if we're bridges to help those that are maybe at the beginning of the bridge and they're looking at the bridge thinking, I can't cross that bridge. Like that's too much
right.
for me to do. And so you're saying, I'm over here. I've already crossed the bridge and I'm
Just
over here and
hold
I
the
can
hand out and go
hold your hand.
together.
So
And
when
that's
you mentioned pay it forward, is that something like what you were talking about? Something similar to what you were
yes,
talking?
it's like I want people to feel what I feel paying others or sharing with others my story because I was always embarrassed of everything bad that had happened to me. And I wouldn't want to talk to anybody about it because in my dictionary of life, you had to have a perfect life or not speak of any pain,
Mm,
you know?
yeah,
So I always subdued everything that I wanted to express, that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted, and that's I've also felt like I was suppressing a lot of emotion, a lot of things that I needed to get out and
yeah,
see. Because
yeah,
that's another thing is when you have all those limiting beliefs, you build up a wall of
yeah,
everything that keeps you from seeing the good stuff, from seeing that reward of paying it forward, from seeing the transformation in others and yourself, and seeing
right.
your worth and your better versions because I didn't even know we could get a better version.
Yeah.
All this is new to me
And
in all many
refreshing,
ways.
refreshing.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
it's fun. It's fun.
it is fun and recognizing that, I think resilience is vulnerability as well. Because if you didn't share your story about resilience, that bounce back, which is what I think your interpretation of resilience is, that bounce back
Right.
within all of us. But some of us just need it drawn out a little bit more, or we need sort of mentoring or coaching to help us to see the resilience in us
Hmm.
because it's so covered up.
And that's what I feel like I'm doing is just putting out my hand to have someone come with me
Yes,
and show them that I went through all this.
yes,
Maybe you can gather something from
yes,
your adversity from it.
correct. Yeah,
And then when you learn how to overcome all these things that keep you grounded in this dread, then you will pass it and pay it forward to someone else. And each and every one of us that are affected in that way
mhm,
can corroborate, can make a better world because
yes,
we're teaching, we're nurturing the soul, the mind, and everything that affects us to the point that we can make it a better world. It's
yes.
that simple. We just don't know
I
how because
love
no one
that.
told us.
I just love the pay it forward. I love the your generosity because we speak outside of this and I see your generosity, your empathy, your vulnerability. All of those qualities are part of, I think, the qualities of a resilient person because you can't be resilient and sort of just me, myself, and I. Like you can come
No,
through, right?
no.
And as I as I focus on generosity, I really see resilience as part of generosity. Honestly.
Hmm. Thank you. I just know that it kind of breeds uh an influx of virtues and values that you discover, because
That's
that's
right.
another thing. You don't know that you're virtuous. You don't know that you have any value when you're bummed out all the time and depressed. You
Yep.
don't
Yep.
you don't see anything good in you. And when you see someone that says that, oh, things will get better, suck it up, buttercup, whatever, it doesn't matter. They To you, they don't understand what you're going through.
Correct.
But when I now speak, it's like, oh, I know what I might not have felt what they're going through right now, but
Right.
I'm pretty familiar with the territory they're in, where you don't know where to go, you don't know who to ask, you want to hide, you want to duck, you want to protect yourself, but you don't know what from, and you
Yeah.
don't know why. And really, there's nothing to protect yourself from. On the contrary, is you have to release, you have to
Mm.
accept, you have to
Mm.
let go, you have to
Yes.
bounce back
Back.
and, and grab that grit and
Yeah.
go with it. And
And sometimes you need a person to do that because sometimes you are so low. You are
mhm,
on the bottom of
yes,
that ladder and you said, I can't go any lower. And
no.
then sometimes God sends that person or persons in your path, and that's all you need.
Mhm,
That's all you need to come to a place where you said, you know what, I do have worth and value. You know what? I have something to offer the world. So
yeah.
as people are listening to this, and somebody is saying, you don't know my story, I'm a single mom, whatever, in whatever situation, I have no money, I have no job, I have nothing. And you're telling me just to bounce back, give me a simple call to action for that person who's listening to this.
A
What would you
simple
say to
call
that
to action.
person?
I would say, take a look of where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go. When you
Mm,
divide your plan of action, your call of action to where you've been, you
mhm,
know you don't want to go back to where you've been. Okay. Well, now take it a step further and say, where you've been, what did you learn?
mm,
What stuck with you? What made you keep going? What made you drop back? And then you start discovering the patterns of those limiting beliefs that always, I didn't even know they existed, but they always seem to be the reason why I got stuck, the reason why I never felt I could get ahead, because it was a repetitive pattern of
mm.
my way of thinking. And
Sure.
when I cleared all that luggage out of the way, I was like, wait a minute, this isn't the only way to go. There's other options.
There's other options.
And
Yeah.
there's blessings that came along, and I had no idea that this could be good where it sounded so bad. And that's all people ever said was, "Ooh, if you have to go through that, that's a nightmare, disaster." But that's also surrounding yourself with that kind of toxicity that people don't see anything good around them. So you also absorb that, and you learn that type of reaction, and you think that that's the reality of life, but it's not. It's the reality of how we think. It's not the
Mhm.
reality of what's actually happening. So when you take a look at yourself and you say, okay, I don't want to go back. I'm going to take a second look, and then you start discovering, and then you say, okay, I'm here. And what
Mhm.
do I want to go back? No, I want to move ahead, but
Mm.
I got to deal with the now. And
Yes.
what can I control?
Mm.
What can I actually fix? And what do I have to accept, let go, find help, find a friend,
Mhm.
discuss with a therapist, whatever. But just there's options to everything. We just don't know that they exist.
Mhm.
And that's the difference that I discovered along the
Yeah.
way.
So really, you mentioned a really good clear path, a 1, 2, 3, I call it. Look back to where you are and then lessons learned. I say you never fail, you only learn.
That's
You
it.
never fail, you only learn. So learn what happened that didn't work. You're not going to do that again. You mentioned don't go back because that didn't help you. Look at where you are right now. Um, and then do the next, what you can control. You mentioned what can you control? And then
Mm.
what is the one thing that you can do today to create a brighter tomorrow?
Right. Make a list. Make a
Make a
list.
list.
Make a list of all the good things that have happened to you. And this is where I say my list of counting my blessings put a damper on my curses because I started doing. I said, okay, I'm gonna write everything bad that's happened to me, and I thought it was huge.
Right.
All my blessings outnumbered those by a long shot, and I
Well,
was like,
that's there you go. That's what we have. So writing the list of, the bad things, and but then the writing the list of good things that have happened,
or the things you've survived that you
or the
didn't
things you
realize you survived.
survived, or the people in your lives, or what you have. I mean, just that alone is like a whole book,
Right.
because there's so many things that we little small things, big things, small things. So that
Exactly.
is your next step, to begin to use this simple plan that Marty shared, to begin the process. And it we will be back and we will share more steps. It is not, it is a process. It is not going to happen overnight, because you didn't get there overnight. So don't
No,
expect, big changes, but can I just say small steps leads to big results.
exactly. And you
Tiny,
do have to,
tiny steps.
and that's the thing. Don't stay put because when you stay put, that's all you see is all the mess that you're in.
Right. And we know that life is not linear. This is not going to be a path of like we're just coasting. This is
No,
going to be up and down and up and down, but the key is the
bouncing.
bounce back. The bounce back.
That's it.
The
You got
bounce back is the key. That means, okay, I'm down today, but I'm not staying down.
no, no. And when you start bouncing back, you start seeing more things because you're like,
That's right.
I'm keeping my eye on focused on
Right.
where I want to go.
Yeah.
And you're not no longer seeing all the bumps you hit. And you're more like, oh, look at it. I didn't notice that. It's because you're focused. You want to go to the destination of
Yeah.
to get you out of that thing. And then if you do traject all that path, then you're like looking back, then you can look back and say, wow, I didn't think I'd make it through.
Right.
But that's
That's
where
right.
faith gives you that extra oomph to believe in yourself and believe that a force is with you trying to get you to learn and deal with it on your own because I say God tests us all the time. We
Mm,
have to learn to be prepared for that constant testing. And resilience helps us study a little bit better and further. And that's why if you share it with someone,
yeah.
you may be going through something hard, and this has happened to me where I was going through something hard. Like I had a right now I have a pinched nerve, and I'm like, I've already had enough surgeries. I don't want to go near a doctor. I don't want any pain pills, blah, blah, blah. But if you have someone next to you and they're like, they showed their adversity, and you're like, I got nothing. I got nothing.
I
This is,
got nothing.
it humbles you too. It humbles you because then you don't have any right to complain about something
Right.
as simple as a pain compared to something that's going to take away your life for the rest of the
Hmm.
person's time. So it's just perspective
Perspective, yeah.
and
And you'll get
measuring.
there. You'll get
Yes,
there. You'll get
little by
there
little, and it
little
takes
by little.
practice and
It does. It does.
constant learning.
And
Constant.
I was listening to Dr. Carolyn Leaf today. She's a neuroscience scientist, and she talked about it takes about 63 days to build a good habit. So it's going to take time.
Yes.
Um, and I would say if you're the type of person who needs support, get somebody to help you to stay the course, because 63 days is a it's a long time, and
Right.
your momentum can wane. But if you have somebody checking in with you and sort of saying, how's it going, encouraging you, you need a cheerleader and a champion to do
Right.
those kind of things. Because for the type A's, which I'm not, we need some help. We need some buddying. We need some collaboration. We need some co-joining of forces. So don't do it alone. If you're trying to sort of bounce back from something hard and difficult, don't do it alone. Life is not meant to do alone. And
And that's,
so,
I think expressing what you're thinking or facing those emotions and those sentiments that you have and letting
yes,
them out helps you
correct.
get a clarity of what you can and can't do as well. And if you have
Right.
a friend or a mentor that you can share with and they kind of like grounded well in
Yes.
adversity and everything else, then you feel like, okay, if they got through it or they know how to do
I
it,
catch
then
my second wind.
I can possibly come out of this, and you start believing in yourself, and then as you move every step forward a little closer, then you'll see that you've advanced. You'll see that you've come a long way, that
A
you
little bit
see
at a
that you've
time, and I
overcome.
tell you, it's that when you feel afraid and you feel, "I can't do this. This is
Right.
too big and scary." It's like, "Yeah, you can do this. You've got this."
Yes.
It's sort of like, "Okay, go back out on the field. You've got this."
Uh-huh. Just dust
So,
off and keep going because that's
keep
that's
going.
what we gotta do. We
Keep
gotta
going. So
keep
every
moving.
week we will read some of the book because the woman who wrote the resilience book is the resilience. So we're gonna cap glimpses of it, and of course, can you tell us where to find a copy of the book?
Sure, it's in Amazon and it's called Resilience Nourishes the Soul. And you can follow me on any social media as martiemsmith.com is my website. And we'll put some comments under here if you want
That's
to
right.
contact Jen or me for some
Yes.
coaching. We
Yes.
will be glad to share what we know, and maybe you can gather a hint or two about what it is that you need to focus on to make yourself a little more resilient, more bouncy.
Get your bounce back. That's it. Get your bounce back. Thanks for watching.
All
Bye.
right. God bless. Take
God
care.
bless.